What's going on, everyone? If you're still here watching the build, I thank you for the support. In this intro, I'll be explaining parts of this episode. So we begin by smearing the seat face of the valve with some gasket gel or something similar like that. We are checking to see if the valves make contact with the seat in the cylinder head. We do both inlet and exhaust, checking almost all valves. We then place all valves on the inlet side and measure them to check that the distance from the high boss to the top of the valve is almost the same distance from the first time we measured them. This makes sure everything will be almost the same, putting it back together as when it came out. We then do this same procedure for the exhaust side right after. My dad then explains how the hydraulic lifters can compensate for a slight difference in stem height known as clearance. We then wash the head and show the valve stem seals being pushed in. You can use a drift, which is made for this type of job, but we use just a regular socket that matches the same size as the seals. So how much tolerance do you allow?
I'll show you in a minute. Stuck. In the 86. 3176.
So these are still pumped up. So how they work is when you buy new, you can push that. You can push that in, yeah.
Yeah.
So that means that because the old type, the old cars used to have a rocker arm with an adjuster on the top, and so when you got onto the base of the cam, so just for argument's sake, when it's firing number one cylinder, you have to have valve clearances for the valves to be shut for a compression. So when your cam follower is on the base of the cam, then you have a set clearance in your valve. But the old ones were a pain in the ass because they're always noisy. You always had to adjust them, because as well, more so with the older cars, because they had softer seats, you get valve recession. So as everything's wearing, the valve can slowly, as it's pounding the seat, can slowly move up into the cylinder head, only by degrees, but it slowly can move up, which decreases the clearance. Yeah. Well, so you're always adjusting them, but hydraulic tappets are fantastic because when you put in a new set of lifters and they're collapsed, so just say for argument's sake, when you've machined the valves and the seats and machined the end of the stem, and you put this in and measure it, say it had, with it collapsed, say it had 20 thou clearance, this will pump up to a working clearance, and once it pumps up, you can't push it in like that. So this one's still full of oil. So that's why we're measuring it, so that if we had machined a bit off the seat and the valve, which will end up pushing the stem further up into the head. We, without checking it, if it's too far up, we'll have no clearance here, and so it'll have tight valves or open valves. So that's why we have to check it. So once we get the head right, then we have to collapse these, because once these are pumped up, they won't bleed down. They pump up but don't bleed down. So I'll show you how to do that after. So you see how that one pushes in. So when that's back in the head, all ready to start, as it starts, it'll rattle a bit until oil pressure comes up. Oil pressure will come in through the galleries, through here, and it'll pump up to its working clearance, and then it'll be quiet. No maintenance. I love them. They're fantastic. As I said, the old type, you always had to stuff around periodically to adjust. It's like the old motorbike. I've got to every now and then.
Can we take these out?
No, not yet. So now that we've measured them, those clearances are all within. They're all very close to where they were. So I'm going to leave them all at that. And I expected that, because we took next to nothing off the valves and the seats, but then we took a little bit off the end of the stem. So as we face the valve, the stem goes down a little bit deeper. As we did the seat, down a whisker more, but then we took some off the end of the stem. So it's actually compensated to be good enough for a Skyline.
So we had an average of 32 mil. So
yeah,
what they were now was probably what, average of 31.7 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So how much of a lenience do you give,
Well,
for it to be okay? Well, how much is too much?
well, and look, another thing I do is the last check that I do, just to make sure, when I've collapsed all the lifters, assembled the head, I'll turn the cam over. I'll turn the camshaft over and make sure that all the valves are shut, and that I can move the lifter. It's just, I can get a feeler gauge under and just see that the pressure, they'll be right, because that clearance is like, so we had, what, 31.8. Yeah, 31.8. So we were sort of around 31.9. It's like, I don't know what that is in imperial.
It's so minuscule.
Yeah, it is. When we've got such a big clearance on the lifter from collapsed to fully pumped. But because we've checked them, so now we're not going to mix them up, just in case. There could be one that's maybe had a bit more taken out of it, and it maybe a bit, and one valve's got a little bit. Because we know they're right, we're now going to number them, so they'll all go back in the same way. Because we've measured each one, we know their stem height is okay, so we'll make sure that they all go back in.
Right.
So I'll get my white fixer. So I'm getting a bit to go on these holes for the caps. Working the brush around so there's a film of this degreaser that's running around the lifter hole. It's running down into the bottom of the guide boss. And I cleaned it the other day as well with that degreaser. I mean, ideally you'd have a big tank and you just drop the whole thing into the tank. Well, we don't have a tank. So the first thing we want to do, it's dry, is use oil. I'm just lazy, this is easy. Just stop any corrosion on the... You'd be surprised how quickly rust can start. Just surface rust. So everything's clean, we keep everything clean. Clean rag.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean, right, Dad?
Huh?
Keep it clean, right, Dad?
If we can. Yep. If possible.
Bit of firm pressure.
Hmm?
Bit of firm pressure. So how do you know that they're on properly?
Well, we'll give them a bit of a tap a bit later on.
Is that enough oil?
Yep. I can feel it sliding down on the end of the guide. Now if you put them in dry, you'll be battling, you can tear them up. So you can see how that will sit just on the shoulder. It's loose enough to not catch up on that spring, and it's enough to just go around the shoulder without slipping over the edge. And as long as I get it square there, that just pop. You can see how easy that pops on. Some can be tight, some need a hammer to just tap them in, but and then when they've been on there for a long time, they can be very tight because the rubber goes very hard and it just hangs on there.
At the end of the day, we are confident that all measurements are correct and true. The head is clean, with new seals installed. Next job is to install the valves and other related parts. I thank you for watching the video, and please give it a like if you found this beneficial or just liked the video. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Episode 7 will be out soon.